33. For those of you who are remote, we have you recorded. We'll just do a quick introduction of those in the room. Dave Castle, Board President.
Richard McCurr, representing Middlebury.
Alex Armani Munn, ACEDC.
All right, and the agenda is in the SharePoint folder, as well as all the supporting docs. Does anyone have any change to the agenda they want to bring up? All right, hearing none. Alex, why don't we jump into, oh, actually, we need to approve the June minutes. So the June minutes were also in SharePoint. Is there a motion to approve the June minutes?
So moved.
All right, Richard, a second. Chris, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? I'm going to abstain. I wasn't at the meeting. But the June minutes are approved. All right, now Alex, we'll do staff activity.
Yes, staff activity report. I'll run through a few highlights real quick, and then do want to look at our operating strategy. As folks may recall from June, we put together a new tool for our operating strategy this year, and we'll be using that to do our staff activity reports moving forward rather than the traditional written reports that we had done in the past, which I think were a bit tedious and long-winded. So I think this would be a much more efficient way. So before we look at that, a couple of the highlights. CHIP work continues at a rapid clip. Happy to report that we hosted a CHIP workshop in Virgins last Friday that included a panel of Alex Farrell, the state's Commissioner of Housing and Community Development, as well as Jessica Hartleben, the Executive Director of BEPC, and Bonnie Waninger, of Vermont League of Cities and Towns. I think we had about 20 folks who attended, predominantly developers, municipal folks, and people really interested in utilizing CHIP. So not a big crowd, but again, really a tailored audience to folks who will take advantage of this tool. Following that workshop in the morning, I hosted a draft application work session with Town and Middlebury staff and 2 select board members in Summit Development to review the CHIP application for Stonecrop Meadows. That was a 3-hour workshop, but very productive, and has set us up for a public hearing on July 28th at the Middlebury Select Board's regular meeting, where, if all goes well, they will approve Summit's application for CHIP to support phase 2 or phase D or phase A, B, or C. A few different phase names for the infrastructure they'll be building. But with that approval, we'll be able to submit, and that should be the first CHIP application in the state. We've had a lot of communication with the BEPC staff on just the logistics of that review and the site visit. And hey, how's it going, Mark? Mark Foster is just joining us in person now as well. So we're really excited for that. And on the heels of that, we have the Middle Road apartment projects will also be going to work session, public hearing, hopefully in August, as well as our 2 projects in Virgins also going to work session, public hearing. So we could have not just the first CHIP application submitted in the state, but potentially the first 4. So we're really excited about that. Otherwise, I am excited to report that our lease at the Duclass building has been signed. Folks may recall there was some discussion around including right of first refusal language. Did have some discussions with the bank. There's not explicitly right of first refusal in the lease, but what it does allow is, what it requires is 12-month written notice of intent to either not extend or to extend the lease. So we will have plenty of time and forewarning if that lease is not going to be extended. So I believe the final version of the lease is on SharePoint. If not, I'll double check today and make sure it's available there for folks to look at. But that move will happen in September. So Nicole, over the last couple of weeks, has been putting together an inventory of office furnishings and supplies. So we're now in the process of really just categorizing everything as keep, sell, trash. We'll probably have a couple garage sales in August to get rid of some stuff, but we'll keep folks updated on the logistics of that as those efforts progress. Otherwise, have had some very productive meetings with the college recently on our work at what was previously known as Phase 2 and Phase 3 of the Middlebury Industrial Park. We are now calling it the Middlebury Innovation District. And I'm working with the college right now on preparing an RFP for master planning services of that area. What that master planning will really focus on is what that development looks like after the infrastructure phase. So as folks know, we've been working over the last year with Otter Creek Engineering to complete design and permitting of infrastructure in that area. The design work is pretty much complete. Permitting work is ongoing. Will likely continue through the end of the year, maybe accelerated a little bit. But the intent again of that master plan RFP is to bring in a firm who can really help us understand demand in the market, what that physical space, the vertical construction will eventually look like, and what a planned unit development and zoning approach would be to ensuring we get the built environment that we want there. It will also help us, with marketing materials and a brand that we can use to really engage end users. So very excited with that RFP. Hoping to get that out next week, so we'll have more updates on that. And that master planning process will hopefully be wrapped up by May. And again, that will give us a really clear, well-defined vision with renderings and a program matrix on what exactly that innovation district will look like here in the future. Otherwise, just want to let folks know that July is a very busy time for paperwork and administrative work specifically related to our operating grant with the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. So I submitted our final report for fiscal year 2026 yesterday. We'll be submitting paperwork for our fiscal year 27 grant agreement or contract rather today. Otherwise, along with that, we have our annual SAM renewal and our ASR report to the state. The ASR report is basically required for being a subrecipient of a federal grant through the state, and some of the dollars we get from the state trickle down from the federal government. So just a lot of bureaucracy right now, but we got to do it. Similar to that, I also have our fiscal year 2027 loan loss reserve analysis that I'm preparing right now for loan committee. That's really just assessing the fiscal health of our different borrowers and determining associated fees for the loan loss reserve. So hoping to present that to loan committee by the end of the month, and then that will come to the board for approval in August. Otherwise, we published our summer newsletter yesterday, and we will be working with the Addison Independent to do a branded column hopefully next week. That branded column is really intended to drive folks to our website, more importantly to the newsletter. And that column will likely focus on housing and our CHIP work. Folks likely saw the article that John Flowers published recently on that work. And I know the editor at the Independent has expressed interest in doing some more coverage on that. So I figured we could help drive that narrative by doing a branded column. So yeah, look for that in the ND hopefully next week. Otherwise, our annual Addison County economic report will be published in Vermont Business Magazine next month. So I'm communicating with their editor right now on just some insight and comments on that. And I've heard through the grapevine recently that Addison County will be capital for the day. Also in August, the state has not contacted me about that. But I have heard from other RDCs that we're next up. This will be my first capital for the day. I'm not sure if folks have been around in the past for that, but it's quite a big to do. I believe the governor comes to town with a lot of state kind of senior staff, and it's just a day of engagement. And so once I do hear more from the state, I will send an email to the board letting folks know what exactly that's going to look like.
When is it?
From what I've heard, sometime in August. But again, the state
Okay.
have not been contacted by the state. Let's see. Oh, also want to give folks a heads up that Richard will be presenting grant services policy review and some recommended updates in August. We went through this process with Camille last year, and this is something we'll likely continue doing on an annual basis. I don't anticipate any major updates. The only change I know off the top of my head that we'll likely see is a change in the rates we're charging for our grant services, just to reflect Richard's pay rather than Camille's. Otherwise, wanted to confirm that our USDA grants were both submitted. That's the Rural Business Development Grant, which sought capital for our ACEDC revolving loan fund that was submitted June 30th. And then our request for capital to start a water and wastewater revolving loan fund was submitted July 3rd. And last thing on the grant front is our BGS Building Communities grant. Those applications for the next round of funding are expected to open in August. So we'll likely have our hands full with that here in August and September. So to wrap up our staff report, again, just wanted to share, folks may recall that we reviewed this rather intensive Excel file in the spreadsheet in June. The board will always have access to this, so if you want to get into the weeds of the various focus areas or priority areas, you're certainly more than welcome to, but the most efficient way to really see what we've been up to and how we're tracking it is by going to the monthly tabs, which really summarize work completed over the last month. So this is the tab for July, and every month we'll add a new tab that again basically aggregates data information from these other tabs. But you can see at the top here, tracking our business engagements. So we've set an annual goal of 50. We had 2 in July, which seems a little low. But year after year are really, I think, closer to like 100 business engagements, and that's engagements with unique businesses. So yeah, very confident we'll hit that. Otherwise, service agreements for fees for service. As I mentioned, we are working with the college on the RFP, so that one's still pending, but should have one of our targeted 5 hopefully wrapped up here in the next month, which will generate some fee for service revenue. Otherwise, BGS grants, we still have 4 open, 1 from the fiscal year 25 cycle, and then 4, I think, from fiscal year 26, 3. So yeah, nothing else too notable here. But yeah, happy to answer any questions at the moment on staff activity or ongoing project updates.
I really like this spreadsheet. It's really nice for tracking stuff.
Yes. And the other thing I will share real quick is we have resumed a standard monthly staff meeting now that Richard is on board and in office a little more and ramping up to full time. And I was really pleased with the staff. It'll be the first Tuesday of every month, and basically we sit down and we look at this spreadsheet and we all collectively, share our updates and review kind of where progress is. So I think it's already proven a great tool for staff organization. And again, an area where I think we'll improve this year is tying all of our reporting back to our operating strategy. And there really wasn't a clear connection between activity reporting and the operating strategy last year. So yeah, I'm really pleased with this process so far.
Great.
Yeah.
And thank you for all the paperwork you're doing in July. This is
what I live for.
Part of the job. I'm sure you're very excited to do it all. So if there's nothing else on the staff activity report, we can go into the June financials.
Yes, I won't go too far into detail here other than to say that, I'm very, very happy to report that we officially ended fiscal year 26 with a $14,332.38 surplus. I do want to note here that there was an expense, I think it was around a $4,700 expense for renewing our contract with GlueUp. GlueUp provides our CRM and website. So that was budgeted in fiscal year 27, but we paid it in June. So basically I had the June surplus. So in reality, that surplus was closer to about $19,000. But again, paying that expense in June takes that out of fiscal year 27, which will help our profit and loss there. So yeah, great to end the year with a surplus. And as we mentioned in our budget discussions, the big challenge this year, as it is every year, will be managing our projected deficit down to hopefully a surplus. But I did share with the executive committee that realistically, I don't want to create the expectation that we'll be able to take a $30,000 or $40,000 projected deficit and turn it into a surplus, but I am pretty confident, very confident that we'll be able to manage that deficit down to a level that's lower than the surplus we saw in 2026. So that's the goal right now, and hopefully we can exceed that goal and end the year with another surplus, but we'll see. The other thing I do want to share real quick, just on financial reporting. Seward, I did have a good conversation with Seward about 2 weeks ago, just reviewing the final budget for fiscal year 27 and talking about accounting, entering the new fiscal year. And one of the outcomes of that was a monthly profit and loss report. So what we do have here and available on SharePoint is a complete profit and loss month by month for fiscal year 25, and we'll continue to get updated monthly profit and loss. Before, the profit and loss reports we were receiving were just all year to date. So now we'll be able to see a more clean breakdown of each month.
Yeah, that'll especially help with the membership dues and just seeing where the bumps are.
Yeah, and I will share on that note. So as folks know, with our membership dues, over a third of our membership kind of comes due for renewal at the same time around like April each year. So it's, I mean, literally, I think like 35 to 40 renewals all at once. And there was at this point last year, our renewals, we were down like negative 28, folks who had expired. And it took us basically all year to get that back up to, positive net membership. And this year we're starting from, I think, just like negative 15 or negative 16. So a much smaller hole that we're digging out of in the renewal process, but still a lot of work. So.
All right, any comments on the financials? The board? All right, hearing none, we'll go to the MNC activity report.
Yeah, MNC activity report should be on SharePoint. Not much to report there other than, again, some great press recently with our chip work. And that article, originally published in the Independent, was picked up by VT Diggers. So that's our second article in the last like month or two that's been picked up by a state outlet. So word's getting out that we're doing a lot of stuff here and building a lot of things. So we're excited about that.
Great. The next item is citizen comments, an opportunity to raise or address issues not otherwise included on this agenda. Is there anything anyone wants to bring up? All right, hearing none. The next action is discussion around the new nonprofit membership tier.
So as folks may recall from our retreat and some other recent board meetings, there was the proposed idea to really alter or adjust our membership tiers so that nonprofits could be included in the $50 sort of startup tier. So rather than creating a new tier, we're basically just expanding that tier to include not just startups being businesses that have started within the last 18 months, but to also include nonprofits. And really the reason for this is that when you look at our overall active membership, it's typically around 100, give or take, maybe up to about 110 on good times or down to about 90, again, during renewal period. But of that total membership, about a third, not a little more, was classified as partner members, and those are complimentary memberships. And the way that our membership and dues policy was written, it did allow for those complimentary non-voting memberships for basically strategic partners, folks who had missions closely aligned with ours, who we worked with on a very active basis. However, the policy was also written in such a way that in order to allow somebody to register as a partner member required board approval. And I don't think that was being done in practice, because by the time I started, again, we already had 30 something partner members. And I don't get the impression from past meeting minutes that every single instance of somebody registering as a partner member was brought to the board. And frankly, like, those folks can just go online and complete that application. And if we had to bring every single one of those applications to the board for approval, it would just create a very tedious administrative process. It would also create a situation where we'd have to say yes or no. And in saying no, we would have to tell people or justify, hey, we value your partnership, but not enough to give you a free membership.
Sure.
So I think it just creates some administrative complexities, and then also just some community relations complexities. So what I'm proposing is that we continue to offer complimentary non-voting membership to key strategic partners who are listed here. And the Word document that I've brought up is a clean version of the revised membership and dues policy. The original version is also available on SharePoint, but it's really this non-voting membership section that's changed. So the folks that will continue to offer that complimentary membership to include the Chamber, the RPC, the 3 downtown organizations, and the SBDC. The revised policy does still provide the board with the discretion to grant complimentary non-voting memberships to other organizations. But what we'll do is we'll stop promoting the free membership. It won't be listed on our website. So we won't have to worry about folks just going, on their own accord and signing up for that membership. If we build a strategic partnership with somebody that we think warrants that, then I can bring that to the board. But again, that would be purely at our discretion. So we'll be more proactive in that rather than, again, reacting to any nonprofit that signs up. And again, as I mentioned, basically now what we'll do or what the change we'll see is in that $50 membership. It's currently, again, listed on the website as being available to startup businesses. So from now on, it'll just be a nonprofit startup business membership. And we will be drafting, letter and communications to go out to all those nonprofit partners, letting them know that with their upcoming renewals, we'll be requiring that $50 annual due. I expect there'll be some folks who will pay it and some folks who won't, but either way, we won't really be losing money. So, and there is a resolution, again, outlining those changes. So per bylaws, this is something that would require board approval. So happy to answer any questions on that.
So Alex, just so I understand, and you probably covered this, but so we have current nonprofit members and they're now paying nothing, or are they paying in accordance with our dues schedule?
So we have, I don't have the exact count off the top of my head today, but based on past reviews of active memberships, it was like well over 30 again partner members, and that was predominantly nonprofits or municipalities. And with municipalities, we'll continue to grant membership to those municipalities that pay municipal contributions. But yeah, we had a very high number of just nonprofits who were, again, non-paying members.
Okay, so they're all non-paying members. So this, say it another way, this is a net dollar gain to ACEDC to start charging $50 across the board for nonprofit.
Yes.
Okay. And I guess I'm just going to ask the question of why aren't we just charging them conventional rates like everybody else?
We could do that. My concern was it, could be cost prohibitive for folks. And I think the other concern there would be if we go from saying, hey, we were offering you a free membership, but now we want to charge you 110 or 275. I think we could certainly entertain that in the future, but I figured this would be an easier on-ramp for folks.
Okay. I mean, I've said this before, but I don't think our dues are high enough across the board.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. I mean, what does $110 buy you these days?
Cheeseburger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I'm supportive of your concept, but I just think we should be charging more across the board.
Yeah, I'll leave that to the discretion of the board. I don't disagree, but
Ron, did you have a question?
I did, just a very minor wordsmithing. It looks like you have an extra line in the non-payment members, non-voting members.
Yeah.
Go all the way down to the last possible line where you have the dangling colon there. No, up. Last line of the non-voting, up farther, right there. Should
Yes.
that last line be deleted? And I apologize for the wordsmithing, but I thought you might want to know.
Yeah, we'll strike through.
Chris, I mean, I agree that we may want to review our pricing tiers. I think it could be a project where we pull some comps and see what other folks are doing and have a
I was just
discussion.
gonna say the same thing, Dave. I presume that all the regional development corporations publish their dues on their website. I'd be curious to see where we land.
Yeah, right. And sort of looking at the services we offer, engagement that we have with members, and then that, so it makes it a bigger project, but maybe we could approve this now and then put that as an ongoing work.
Yeah.
Sure,
What, any comments on that?
I'll go along with that.
Yeah.
You can call that a motion.
All right, so there's a motion to approve the revision of the ACDC membership and dues policy as presented to the board by Alex.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion passes.
I do just in summary, so we'll implement this change.
Yeah.
And then I think our best approach for staff would be to monitor payments over the next several months and see what membership trends are looking like.
Okay.
Do some research. So we will report back on this, but it may be like a January type thing. Like it could be a few months. So yeah, we'll revisit it. But
I think it's good to identify this, Chris, and just see if we're, everything's going up. Are we going up, comparably? So, Alex, there was one thing that we wanted to do at the beginning was introduce Amy.
oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. So I'm sure folks have seen now we have Amy Carlin joining us from Middlebury College. Amy is our newest board member, taking the seat of Sue Ritter as approved at last month's meeting. I'm sure a lot of folks on the call know Amy, but if you don't, she is the Director of Community Relations. Is that correct, Amy?
Yeah.
I think in addition to a few other titles at the college. Also sits on the board of Better Middlebury Partnership. Is that correct?
Yep.
And probably several other boards. So very engaged in the community. Somebody I've had the pleasure of working closely with over the last year on the Innovation District work as far as several other projects. So really excited to have Amy on the board.
Hi,
Welcome.
everyone. Sorry, I'm going to be a little quiet this meeting, just listening and gathering all the information that you were all talking about, but I'm not opposed to your dues going up either. So
I'm sure you're writing down all the acronyms and
Yeah.
we'll look them up in the future.
We gotta get her
Exactly.
those 3 single-space sheets of that.
Yes, you
Yeah.
just reminded me, Richard has been working on that. It's also on my list to check in with him on that. So we'll hopefully have the completed updated acronym guide ready for
Okay,
folks
good.
here.
Alex, you were going to get like a text message being like MNC, ASR.
Exactly. At some point they flow off the tongue. I don't know if that's good or bad.
It might be useful during our conversations over this table for you to actually say what they are, instead
Yeah.
of just using the acronym.
Yes, we'll have to make the note of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, welcome, Amy.
Yeah, thank
maybe
you. I'm happy to be here.
Great. So next order of business is a discussion about the economic mobility in Addison County.
Yeah.
From Ron.
Yeah, so I will tee this off real quick. Really excited to have Trustee Ron Dindis presenting to us today on economic mobility in Addison County. And do want to just start by saying that I think, well, first, Ron and I have had several conversations around this topic over the last year, and he's extremely knowledgeable and insightful. So I'm very excited for the content he's going to share with us today. But I think this also represents something that moving forward would be very valuable for the board. Similar to the presentation we had from Nicole McTavish earlier in the year on CTEs, I think there is so much insight and expertise on our board that can be shared by board members. So really excited to hear from Ron today, but also just want to present sort of the standing invitation to board members at any time in the future. If you have a topic or something you would like to present on, I think it's really helpful to frame future conversations and just give folks really context and insight that can really shape and drive the conversations and the decisions that happen at the board level. And I'll call out Elise Schombacher. Every time I hear Elise talk about housing and housing policy, I'm just like in awe of her expertise. So, Elise, I will probably be pinning you for a future presentation as well. But again, really, Ron, really grateful that you took the time to put this together and to share it with us today. We do have a kind of a short or smaller attendance today, but I will, after the meeting, be sending out an email encouraging board members who weren't present today to watch the video and specifically watch your presentation. So with that, I'm going to shut up and I will hand it over to you. I will have your presentation up here to share, Ron, and you can just let me know when you're ready to go to our next slide. So if you want to take it away.
Great. Since retiring and moving to Vermont, what I've been doing in a lot of my volunteer time with various nonprofit organizations is looking at local data that tell us information about the needs of Addison County and the census tracts within Addison County. It's work that I've been doing for 25 years prior to retirement, and stuff that I just continue to enjoy doing. And so have been putting together various data reports regarding the common theme across sectors, whether it's housing or whether it's economic development or health or education. Everybody seems to be talking about this concept of thriving. How do we get our people to be healthy and thriving? How do we get our communities to be thriving? I hear it a lot from elected officials now. One of our gubernatorial nominees is really talking about thriving. A lot of our state representatives are talking about how do we get Addison County to be a thriving county. And for me, the definition of thriving is looking at vital conditions. And if you could go to the next slide. This is a pretty nationally known best practice around how to determine if in neighborhoods and communities truly are thriving. And they look at 7 key areas that are interdependent: meaningful work and wealth, humane housing, lifelong learning, basic needs of health and safety, a thriving natural world, reliable transportation, and belonging and civic muscle. And what I've done professionally and now in retirement as a volunteer is look at census tract data through the lens of every one of these conditions. And it tells really interesting stories about our municipalities, about our communities, about our neighborhoods, and how they differ and what's needed in order for those organizations or those communities to thrive. And one of the common themes that has been coming up in all of my work is economic mobility. If you could go to the next slide. And economic mobility continues to come up no matter what vital condition I look at. They all seem to be influenced by the ability of people to be able to move up in how much they make and how much they earn. And this has become, we hear this again in the political arenas a lot when we hear about the challenges of affordability. We hear it at the federal level, we hear it at the state level, and it seems to get caught up in, well, the price of eggs and the price of gas. Well, when you really start digging into what economic mobility means, it takes on very different definitions depending on the communities. Yeah, go ahead to that slide. And oftentimes we look at this stuff through a county lens. We look at county data, and it really doesn't give us an accurate story of economic mobility. So when you look at Addison County, our median household income over $88,000. That's above state average. When you look at poverty rates, 7.5%. That's significantly below state and national average. We're always in the top 2 around health outcomes, around safety, and we should applaud ourselves for these numbers, but they don't tell the whole story. They don't tell us, when you're looking at median or you're looking at rankings, it's just giving us average. It's not telling us where we need more attention. It's not telling us the invisible, voiceless communities that are often marginalized in these assessments. And two specific examples: when you look at poverty rates in municipalities in census tracts, for the county, it's 7.5%. But when you look at Census Tract 9603, which is Vergennes, it's 11.2%. When you look at 9605, which is Bristol, it's 13.4%. So by digging into specific municipalities and census tracts, we can learn a lot more about communities that are invisible, communities that don't have voice, communities that aren't thriving. Not yet. I appreciate your quick finger there, Alex. When poverty rate is, in my opinion, is not a good indicator of affordability. It's a number designated by the federal government. It's been around since 1964 with no changes to the formula, other than cost of living increases. And it's based on food being the most expensive item that a household has every month. And we know that's no longer the case. So poverty rate numbers are used to kind of determine who gets funding and who doesn't get funding, who qualifies for social services and who doesn't qualify. But it's not a good measurement of looking at affordability and who can afford to be living in Addison County. Next slide. A better way of looking at affordability and economic mobility is the MIT Living Wage Calculator. And what they do is they take housing costs, childcare costs, transportation costs, and they by county determine what the wage that needs to be earned in order to be living comfortably, in order to be able to pay your bills. And they divide it up into various household types, whether that's a single adult, two adults, adults with children, etc. And again, this tells a very, very different story when you look at what people need to earn in order to afford to live in Addison County. And so this is a very different picture than 7.5% of our folks are in poverty. A very, very conservative number of looking at livable wage tells us that about 30% of Addison County households cannot cover their basic needs. And again, when you drill down on some of these local communities, boy, it tells a really, really kind of strong story about where people are struggling. Next slide. Wherever there's economic mobility challenges, there are health challenges. And so when I look at the numbers of economic mobility and areas where there's economic mobility stagnation, there are oftentimes higher levels of chronic disease and higher levels of mental health. So when you look at some of these poor communities or communities that aren't as thriving as others, we see higher rates of cancer, higher rates of heart disease, higher rates of COPD, et cetera, and higher rates of mental illness. Next slide. Mental illness is something that I think really warrants our attention. We have fairly high numbers in Addison County, and sometimes that can be attributed to, when you look at mental health across the country, there are certain mental illnesses that are organic. There are chemical imbalances that just occur with a portion of our population. There's mental health that's caused by trauma, witnessing violence, being abused, neglect. There's also mental health that's due to the grind of stress of day-to-day living when you're working a meaningless job just to try and keep your head above water and can't give your kids the things that you need. And I think our higher than average mental health numbers have a lot to do with the fact that so many Addison County households are struggling to pay their bills. Next slide. We've heard Nicole talk a lot about this when she talks about education. Economic mobility and the tie to education is so strong. Education is our ticket to better economic mobility. So when we have a cradle to career educational pipeline that is helping our kids create opportunities for meaningful careers with livable wages, boy, that's really our education system. That's really our CTEs that are going to be driving a lot of the work here. And oftentimes, education policies don't line up with the educational needs of our youth. On the flip side of that, if you're coming from an unstable economically unstable family, your chances of succeeding educationally are lower. You're less likely to have quality early childhood learning. You're less likely to be ready to learn when you hit kindergarten. You're going to have more struggles in school. So economic mobility and education are so tied. It's our ticket out, but it's also baggage that many families bring to our education system. Next slide, please. So what we have in Addison County are four barriers that create a mobility trap for a lot of our families. Our housing costs are high. Our childcare, it's hard to get childcare and it's hard to pay for childcare. Our healthcare costs are the highest in the country. And so when you look at these issues, um, there are federal subsidies for a lot of these services that are based on poverty rate. So if you fit that federal poverty level, you can get a subsidy for housing, you can get subsidy for childcare, you can get subsidy for healthcare. Once you cross over that poverty line, or sometimes for some of these services, they're 150% of poverty, you lose out on these benefits. So we have an awful lot of families that are in situations where if they work, it's actually more economically viable for them not to work and use these government subsidies than it is to work and lose these subsidies. So we've created this mobility trap, and there are a whole bunch of families who don't qualify for these subsidies who are kind of stuck. And somehow we need to kind of try and next slide. We need to try and find ways of breaking this cycle of poverty, this intergenerational poverty that is plaguing our communities. Next slide. So ACEDC has a foot in this work already through their workforce expansion program. I think this is a good step in addressing this. We need to be able to look at workforce expansion through the vital condition lens. So we're making sure that we're not putting folks into work situations where they're employed, they're making a wage, but it's not enough to support themselves. Otherwise, we're just contributing to the intergenerational poverty cycle. Next slide. And I'm going to wrap up with just two quick slides. One that says thought leadership, in Addison County should be seen in several ways. Through voice, we should be naming this problem. We should be talking about this problem. We should be discussing this, backing it up with data so that folks are aware that we have an economic mobility challenge for a lot of families in Addison County. We should be framing this out strategically. The vital conditions framework provides us with a good way of doing that. It doesn't have to be the vital conditions framework, but there should be a strategy behind how we approach this work instead of just kind of shotgun approaches of trying to hit this. We need cross-sector partnerships. We need to be convening and joining conversations around how to address this. This isn't an economic development problem. It's not solely an education problem. It's not solely a health problem. But boy, it's not all of our responsibilities, but it sure is all of our problems. So how do we go about addressing this from a cross-sector partnership? And then there needs to be actions like the workforce expansion program, where we're directly trying to kind of stimulate and create opportunities for economic mobility. Last slide. And so for me, economic development and vital conditions go hand in hand. They're not competing things. They're hand in hand strategies that are going to help address a lot of the social problems that Addison County faces. I just packed in like a full day presentation into about a 10-minute presentation. So I covered a lot of ground really fast. I am more than happy to have further conversations around any of this information. I bring this up to raise awareness, not to say that, oh my God, we need to be doing something and we need to do something now. I just raise awareness. I share this with Alex. He thought it would be a good thing to share with the board. And my intent here is just to kind of add a little bit more perspective in what thriving looks like in Addison County. I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ron.
Great.
And I will just add, so many of the points Ron made, we really do see playing out in real time in our workforce expansion program discussions. And so often we're meeting with employers, the barriers to employment, not just attracting employees, but really more so retaining them, are folks dealing with all the issues Ron touched on. So again, everything he mentioned, we see having a real impact day to day here in Addison County. So,
Ron, do you have any ideas for educating employers on the current? I mean, that cost of living slide is very impactful to see what their employees' burden is. Are there any programs or initiatives for like employer education?
None that I'm aware of. I don't work in that field, so my contacts are probably limited. I don't know, but in conversations that I'm having, um, uh, with small business owners and small business consultants, I know that it's a concern. A $14 and 42 cent minimum wage, that's double what we had in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania's, minimum wage is $7. I'm not advocating for increasing minimum wage. I don't know that that's realistic. Um, but what we need are career opportunities for our youth that are going to give them livable wages that are going to break some of these generational poverty cycles that so many folks are addressing. When I work with my colleagues at CVOEO, our local community action organization, they say, we help people survive. We provide rental assistance or food or heating assistance or weatherization. It's not helping them thrive. It's barely helping them survive. We shouldn't be in the survival business. We should be in the thriving business. So I think these are conversations that need to be happening more. I don't think it's just a matter of businesses waving a wand and saying, we're going to pay people more.
Mhm.
We need to have professions that drive higher wages.
Right. Well, thank you. Any other comments? That was great, Ron.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
thanks, Ron.
All right, the next order of business is entering executive session to discuss the fiscal year 2027 budget amendment. Is there a motion to enter executive session?
So,
All right, second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we will enter executive session. All right, the recording is stopped.
Do you want me to tee this off or
Sure, you can
Okay.
tee it off. No, I don't.
So there is a resolution on SharePoint. The resolution was just uploaded